That we have with us Dr. Ajay Sekher, currently working as Assistant Professor, Department of English, Sree Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kalady. So we have been looking for an efficient personality like him to deliver a lecture on a theme of vital importance for the last several years. And we have been organizing series of talks, invited talks for the benefit of the students and research scholars. But I have been looking for him because I have heard about a lot of ideas that he has shared among the students and researchers in various academic institutions and as well as among public. So one of the most important thing that fascinated me is his thorough knowledge on Buddhism and Buddhist culture in Kerala especially, and a value system which is propagated by Buddhism that need to be propagated among the students, because we are living in a situation world where so many superstitions and other kinds of false beliefs have been propagated among the society purposefully from various quarters, especially in a situation where communal tendencies are developing. Religion is using as a part of politics. Our land is always a fertile ground for such kind of propagations and false beliefs. And Buddhism was, of course, one belief system which can offer an alternative solution for such kind of propagations. He is a person who is well versed in this Buddhism, its heritage with regard to Kerala, and as well as he is a person who has studied Dalit areas and mastered over these areas. His very title of his thesis itself shows his thorough understanding of this kind of Dalit studies. And he has been always interested in propagating this kind of ideas and developing a kind of mentality of secularism among the people of different categories of people, especially our youngsters. If our youngsters should be directed in a very fine way, we can expect a better future for our nation. And in this context, we got this person, a person of simplicity, a person having a thorough understanding over the subject, and he has, of course, a very good vocabulary and as well as an oratory capacity to disseminate the knowledge which he has been possessing. So in behalf of the Department of History, I welcome you, sir, and you came in time, and I could appreciate your magnanimity for accepting our invitation and coming over here. Thank you very much. I must also welcome my colleagues, Dr. S. Venumohan. He will come over here very soon, Dr. P. Jinimon, Dr. Sajana, and many friends, research scholars, and PG students from this department, as well as from other research centers, and of course you will be benefited out of this lecture. And I think he will use a bilingual language, both English and Malayalam mixed up, and you can enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Respected Professor Shaji, Dr. Jinimon, Dr. Sekhar, and other members of the faculty, researchers, and students of the Department of History, University of Kerala. I thank you for this opportunity, and also I am deeply indebted to Professor Shaji and Dr. Jinimon for inviting me for this historic kind of occasion. Mahatma Ayyankali's name and legacy of Ayyankali is the foundation of the democratic legacy of Kerala. The modern democratic Kerala was envisioned and materialized by a series of struggles from the Middle Ages onwards, especially at the wake of modernity, with the colonial British kind of intervention and missionary kind of endeavors and intervention. It got another dimension. So there were series of struggles and cultural revolts and rebellions and a kind of ruptures, you can say, a kind of radical kind of ruptures that actually made possible the modern democratic Kerala. The Kerala modernity that many of us boast about, it was created through the generations of struggles by the champions of the people like Ayyankali, Brigade Appachan, Narayana Guru, and many others. So Ayyankali represents the struggle for human rights, the struggle for education rights, and also the struggles for civil rights. So there are at least three phases in the series of radical struggles unleashed by Mahatma Ayyankali. He was born as an untouchable, as Ambedkar himself has stated. I was born a Hindu, an untouchable. It's not my fault, but I will not die one, said Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who created the Constitution of India, who created the democratic kind of republic and constitution in India. So likewise, Ayyankali was an untouchable. He was born at the bottom of the society in Kerala in 19th century. He was denied the art of letters. He was denied reading and writing. As an untouchable, they belonged to the agricultural slaves of Kerala. Professor K.K. Kusuman's memory, slavery in Travancore, Professor K.K. Kusuman, Dr. T.K. Ravindran and others. I am really honored to be part of this great legacy. I have been coming here from the time of Professor Jnaneshwar onwards, and also during the tenure of Dr. Jinimon also I was here. And I am really thankful to this department for actually creating and disseminating the knowledge about the history and reality of Kerala. The Kerala social formation, socio-cultural and political kind of context and junctures are really historicized and textualized and disseminated among the young students and the new generations by generations of professors here, like Professor Shaji, Professor Kusuman and Professor Ravindran, especially in the context of the current centenary celebrations on the Vaikhem struggle. The memory of Professor Kusuman and Dr. T.K. Ravindran, it is undeniable because T.K. has created that book, 8 Furlongs of Freedom, on the struggles of Vaikhem. So whether it is the civil rights movements in Kerala or the human rights movements in Kerala or the movements for education, this place, Trivandrum, Bengaluru, where he was born, and also this department in particular, you have worked a lot and created a lot of historiographical writing and publications and research, which is very much valuable, which is highly cherished by the whole world. So I'm really glad to be part of this endeavor, this historiographical kind of endeavor that you are into. So anyway, Ayyankali's memory is that much precious that without him, without the name of Ayyankali, without the life and efforts, the struggles of Ayyankali, you cannot think of a modern democratic Kerala, a Kerala which is having a kind of, as Professor Shaji said, a secular kind of vision, a secular and polyphonic kind of vision, as Narayana Guru and Thaikad Ayya and Ayya Vaikunta, they have imagined. And a modern Kerala where education is a universal kind of a value, a cherished, very universal kind of objective and value. So Ayyankali fought for this, and Ayyankali struggles for education, the Pallikudam entry struggles, the struggles for entry into schools, the struggles for entry into the public roads and public sphere, the struggles to become human and more human, as the Guru himself has exhorted, to become human whatever be the religion, to be human and to be more good humans. That is what the human must improve. To become human and improvement of the qualities of the human. That was the dream of the Guru. And the Guru has set the goals also. Guru has delivered the key educational message to the Kerala people and also to the whole world. So he was the first to articulate the truth that you need to be educated. You are ignorant and you are excluded. You are being oppressed because you are not educated. So educate so that you are liberated. And also empower yourself through a unition or through an organization. You have to unite yourself and organize yourself and move as a kind of union or organization. So educate so that you are liberated, and also organize so that you are empowered. That was the key message of education, and also organization that was delivered, or that was given by the Guru for the good and welfare of the people and for the creation of a more humane, more ethical and egalitarian democratic society in Kerala that he has inscribed in the very first kind of consecration or idol installation that he has done at Arivipuram towards the end of the 19th century, breaking all the caste Hindu taboos and the purity, pollution, riddles of Brahmanism, breaking all the customs. Today we have the Vishwasi Lahalas and the Tindari Lahalas and Namajapa Ghoshayatras and all. So breaking all these customs and tradition, all the belief systems, all the existing ritualistic practices of religion. It was Guru who actually founded that idol at Arivipuram in 1888, and following that he has also inscribed that he is aiming to create a society sans caste and religion with all fraternity and a whole lot of mercy for all the people, the whole humanity and the whole world. So that kind of a model state, that kind of a model space, irrespective of caste and religion and its conflicts and tensions and untouchability and pollution and purity riddles, he was dreaming or aiming to make here in Kerala. So that message became so much powerful and impactful, and people like Mahatma Ayyankali was inspired by the life and teachings of the Guru, especially his message for education, public education. Educate so that you are liberated. വിദ്യയിലൂടെ നിങ്ങൾ സ്വതന്ത്രരാവുക, അതുപോലെ സംഘടനയിലൂടെ നിങ്ങൾ ശക്തരാവുക. This key message, it's actually the dictum that was propagated by a lot of people in South India. It is there in the teachings of Ayya Vaikuntha, in the Siddha tradition of Tamilagam it is there. It is there in the Tiruvallur, in the Sangam tradition, in Tiruvallur's Tirukural, you have that doctrine, the philosophy that human beings are all equal. They are equal at their birth. Pirapokkum uyirkellam, ella uyirkum pirapokkum. That is the philosophy that was deeply embedded in the soil of the Sangam culture. In the context of the Sangam literature and culture, Tiruvallur was the one to embed it in the philosophy and the linguistic worldview of the people in South India in ancient Tamil. So this is what you find in the philosophy of the Buddha, in the Tirthankaras, in Tiruvallur and all the Sangam sages and writers, in the Chittar tradition of Tamilagam, in Ayya Vaikuntha, in Taikkad Ayya, in Naranuguru, you have the more polyphonic and more cosmopolitan, more secular kind of articulation. Irrespective of religion, the human must improve. And the caste of the human is humanity itself, like cowness is the caste of the cow, humanity is the caste of the human. So that kind of a human-centered, not exactly human-centric, but slight difference between human-centric and human-centered kind of philosophy. So Guru was actually talking about the emancipation of the human as well. So therefore he has accented the humanity as the caste of the human. But he was also having a cosmic vision like Thiruvalluvar or the Buddha. So anyway, this kind of a democratic and egalitarian view of the society, which was destroyed, ravaged by caste and varna, which was divided into these fourfold varna structures and on a hierarchical basis by the Sanatana ideology called the Chaturvarnya system or the Varnashrama system. This was challenged thoroughly by the Guru by breaking all the conventions and rituals. He broke all the beliefs, the kind of vishwasams and acharams and rituals, everything were completely broken by the Guru for the creation of an emancipatory space, for the creation of an egalitarian and a polyphonic and a secular and a democratic kind of space. So soon after this, in the 1890s, we find the kind of interventions of Ayyankali. So following the great message for education and organization, and also the Guru, he founded that under his leadership that Sri Narayana movement was founded in 1903. And soon after in 1907, you find the organization of Mahatma Ayyankali also being materialized. The Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangham was created by Mahatma Ayyankali, and he took inspiration and also the organizational model and structure from the Guru himself. And also he was so close to other sages like of Travancore like Thaikadaya during that time. And Thaikadaya has prophesied in 19th century itself that Kali, you will go to the Prajasabha, because the Prajasabha was also founded in 1888 in Travancore, the Sri Mulam Legislative Assembly. And also it is Thaikadaya who also prophesied that your image, Mahatma Ayyankali or Kali, he said Kali, your image will be cherished and protected by the, kept by the kings also in Travancore. Your image is going to be iconic. You are going to be a historical figure. That was the prophecy of Thaikadaya. And he was also close to all the other kind of so-called spiritual people and also the sages and all sorts of leaders of the people or pioneers or gurus of social reformation. So he himself met Narayana Guru at Aruvipuram, especially during the freedom of movement struggles, which we need to take into account of. So there were at least three phases, as I told you, for the larger democratic struggles of Ayyankali. The first was for breaking the caste taboos and entering into the public space, to walk on the public road, for the fundamental right or the fundamental human rights of movement, or the freedom of movement. He broke all the conventions like Guru did in 1888 through the installation. Ayyankali broke all the conventions and he single-handedly entered the so-called highways of Travancore, which were prohibited. There were many legislations, many legal reforms and orders allowing the entry of the untouchables onto the roads and all. But by making a lot of hurdles to that, the caste Hindu kind of bureaucracy, the Savarna kind of elitism, it was actually withholding all these orders. And it was preventing the entry of the people onto the public roads. They have through certain court kind of orders and verdicts, they have created a distinction between the Rajavidhi and also the Gramavidhi. And this was also very detrimental in the freedom of movement struggle at Vaikam also. There was an order from the Travancore regime that everyone, because the roads are public property, the road is created through the public funds using the tax money of the common people, the taxpayer. So therefore anyone, irrespective of caste and gender or religion, they can walk the public road. But they have created certain confusions through certain legal kind of pursuits, and certain court verdicts were misused to interpret that people cannot enter the kind of Gramavidhi. That was the issue there at Vaikam. Indamduruthi was holding the power of the restriction of the freedom of movement because it was deemed as a Gramavidhi. The roads surrounding the temples were deemed as Gramavidhi in an 1890s court verdict, and that was misused, and the Kottayam Peshka, a kind of collector during that time, Kottayam Peshka, Mr. K.P. Shankaramenon, he made that untouchability boards. The Tindal Palagas were installed in 1905 only. In the beginning of the 20th century, those Palagas, Tindal Palagas, or the untouchability boards, warning boards were installed at Vaikam by the Kottayam Peshka, Shankaramenon. And we must also remember that this Shankaramenon is the first signatory in the Malayali Memorial, the first democratic representation for the entry of the Malayali people, or the Malayali Shudras in particular. The so-called Nayars, or the Malayali Shudras, then they were known as the Malayali Shudras, the Malayali Sabha, that was led by C.V. Ramapillai and others, and K.P. Shankaramenon is the first signatory of that 1891 Malayali Memorial. And he has placed, when he became he got the kind of job because of the Malayali Memorial. And Dr. Palpu and others, Varki and others, they also signed and they also contributed financially. 101 rupees were contributed by Dr. Palpu, who was denied education here. He went abroad and got a medical degree and additional degrees, and when he came back, he was denied job by saying that he is an untouchable, he is an Avarna. So he also contributed to it, 101 rupees in 1891, in 19th century. He contributed. It's equal to almost say 10,000 and more now, if you do a kind of calculation. Anyway, he has contributed. Mr. Varki also contributed, but no one apart from the Malayali Shudras or the Nayars got into job. A few Malayali Shudras got into the administrative service. That is how this K.P. Shankaramenon has become the what you call the Peshka of Kottayam. And the reward to the people was that he placed that Tindal Palaga, that untouchability board at Vaikam. And that prevented even the freedom of movement of Narayana Guru himself in the 1920s. And Guru deliberately, he brought that taboo. And when he was ascending the rickshaw, he was using the rickshaw cart, the cycle rickshaw that he was using, and he was forced to get down from that cycle rickshaw in early 1920s. And that actually provoked all these disciples. Mulu wrote 2 poems on that. Only in Mulu's poetry, Mulu Padmanabha Panikar's poetry, we find the historic kind of evidence that was published in 1924 in 2 poems, Sahodaryam and Reply to Chidambaram Pillai. These are all written in verse. So in these 2 verses of poems that we find references to these infamous incidents of Narayana Guru himself denied the public access, the public road at Vaikam in the 1920s, and that provoked T.K. Madhavan and others to go after Gandhi and the Congress, and he went to a Kakinada Congress meeting in 1921. Went to in 1921 he went to first to Tirunelveli Congress, where he saw that 2 types of canteens are there. For the caste Hindus, 1 canteen. For the Congress meeting, there are 2 types of canteens. One for the caste Hindu elites, for the Savarnas, and one for the untouchables and the Mlechas, the people following the other religions, the Muslims or the Christians or the Avarnas may be put together in the second canteen for food. 2 types of dining system. That shocked this man, TK. He was not even a member when he went to Tirunelveli in 1921. He was not even a member. Dr. T.K. Ravindran has written it all. You can read it in that 8 Furlongs to Freedom by Professor T.K. Ravindran. He has written it all. And it even shocked Periyar also. Periyar was also shocked when he went to this Tirunelveli conference and also Kakinada conference. He saw those separate kind of dining halls. Based on caste, it was there in within Congress, that kind of a caste system, untouchability was in practice. So anyway, this is the context of untouchability, and Ayyankali began this struggle in 1890s itself, soon after the Aruvipuram installation. In 1890s itself, he brought that Viluvandi, the ceremonial bullock cart that was the prerogative, the monopoly of the caste Hindus. Only the caste Hindu feudal lords, they used that ceremonial bullock cart, the Viluvandi, with a huge white kind of bulls and silver kind of bells and huge white painted kind of arch and all. It was a ceremonial kind of, it was an image of prestige. It was a caste pride during those era. And he broke all the customs and traditions. എല്ലാ ആചാരങ്ങളും ലംഘിച്ചുകൊണ്ട്, breaking even the law. Actually, the law was in favor of using the public road. Rajavidhi was open. In the 1850s itself, there was a kind of decree or order from the state that everybody can use the Rajavidhi. But still there was a kind of convention, that was a casteist convention, an unofficial kind of practice and precedence was preventing the entry of any untouchable, especially the player. Even Iravas were denied that kind of freedom of movement. We know the story of Alamutil Charma, the greatest taxpayer of Travancore, or the wealthiest person in Travancore, the wealthiest taxpayer in Travancore was Alamutil Charma. Even he couldn't ride his own car through the kind of Gramavidhis. Around when he comes around at Avelikara temple, Kandiyur temple, or that Haripada temple, he was forced to get down from his own motor car only after the Maharaja of Travancore, next to the Deva, and only he was having an imported motor car that time in 19th century or early 20th century. But even that, the highest taxpayer, he was such a wealthy and prosperous person. He was having his own roads through his own lands, acres and hectares of land was with him. He was the highest taxpayer. But even he was humiliated like this. So it was not an issue of wealth or economics or class kind of position. It was a casteist discrimination. It was specifically targeted against the untouchables. And who are the untouchables? That is the key question that we need to ask. It is addressed and answered by Baba Saheb Ambedkar himself. Who were the untouchables and why they became so? That is the key question. The most important, crucial question in Indian social and cultural history. Who are the untouchables and how they became so? Who are the Shudras and how they became so? These are the things that students of history and society and polity and culture must pursue. So according to Ambedkar, he has very clearly explained it. That is a theory that still holds. Plenty of people have written about it. Louis Dubon has got that Homo hierarchicus. Susan Bailey has written the history of caste from the Middle Ages onwards in India. You have M.N. Srinivas himself writing, the sociologist writing about Sanskritization and all. And also we have recently foreign scholars like Nicholas Dirks and others talking about the consolidation of caste during the British colonialism. And there are also fashionable postmodern people who say that caste is a creation of British imperialism. There are historians who have written, both in English and even in Malayalam, they are writing that caste is being consolidated and created by such a kind of watertight compartment by British imperialism. But it was here from the time of Manusmriti onwards, argues Ambedkar. So Ambedkar's theory is the most cogent and the most rational and the most subversive kind of critical theory on caste is given by Ambedkar in these two important texts. Who are the untouchables? They are broken people. Brahmanism has broken them because they were Bahujans or Buddhists. They were practicing Buddhists and they were following the principles of the Buddha, the Maitri, Karuna and Muditva paradigm of the Buddha, the Prajna Karuna paradigm of the Buddha, the enlightenment tradition of India, the rooted tradition, the light of Asia, and his tradition of ancient democracy in India. Ambedkar himself Towards the end of his life, in the BBC interviews and also in the AER interviews, he has repeatedly elaborated the fact that it is not just from the Western tradition or the Western model of democracy that he has imbibed the principles and foundational values of democracy and equality, fraternity, and liberty principles. It's also basically from this soil itself, from my master, he said, Buddha, my master, and his Sangha principles. His Vinaya Pitaka, in particular, articulates about the, or details the rules and regulations of a democratic system. That was actually studied and recaptured in a more what you call modern way. And that is how the modern Buddhism was created, the Neo Buddhism or the modern Buddhism, the Navayana of Ambedkar was created in that kind of a recovery of the ancient roots of democracy within the Sangha rules, or within the Sangha itself is a democratic order. You have the principle, foundational principle of representation and inclusion in the order of the Sangha. Because anyone, women or untouchables or outcasts or the Shudra or the Chudaga or whatever profession they are into or whatever caste they are into or whatever varna or gender they are into or region or language they are into, they are treated as equals and human beings, and they are included, they are given a just and due representation in the Sangha. So representation as the politics of democracy, or democracy itself as a larger people's politics for representation, that is what makes the Sangha and the principles of the Buddha unique. So that inspired Ambedkar, and Ambedkar has elaborated that this liberty, equality, fraternity, I study it, I take it, I recover it from my master, the Buddha, and his Sangha. So anyway, Ambedkar has revealed or elaborated, theoretically and critically elaborated the fact that the untouchables are broken people. They are pushed to the periphery of the caste Hindu village by Brahmanism, because they never submitted to Brahmanism. The people, the Bahujans, they never submitted to Brahmanism because they were adherent to Buddhism. They never submitted to Brahmanical patriarchy, and therefore the Brahmanical patriarchy has punished them and humiliated them and tortured them and tried to break their back by the kind of practice called caste. So caste humiliation, caste untouchability, unimaginable kind of repressive violence that found its expression even in the Vaikam struggle, annihilating the other, putting the limestone solution into the eyes and blinding the other, or crushing the testicles of the other, or making them sit in the sun, and all, or even killing, beating up and lynching and killing, that was done. Even that one victim, the only what you call martyr of Vaikam struggle is Chittedathu Shangupulla, and he is a Savarna man. Chittedathu Shangupulla is a caste Hindu person, but he was part of the volunteers, and he looked like the other people, the Avarna people, the Iravas and Pulayas, and by saying that you are a Pulaya, are you not a Pulaya? That was the kind of charge against him, and he was beaten to death. Many others, that Keshavullah from Malabar, when he came, he was also a dark complexioned person. He looked like a Dalit or a Pulaya, and therefore he was also brutally beaten up. So that kind of casteist and apartheid-like treatment, lynching, mob lynching, that has happened even during the Vaikam struggle. What happened to that Amajadi Thevan, the name that was recorded by K.R. Narayanan, the late MLC. Amajadi Thevan was a bosom friend of T.K. Madhavan, and Amajadi Thevan, he almost lost his eyesight because they put the limestone solution directly into his eyes, and he almost lost it. But later, through many treatments, Guru himself treated him through certain kind of traditional medicine and all, somehow he got the lost eyesight later. So Amajadi Thevan, or Raman Ilayadu, he was a Savarna, he was almost a Brahmanical kind of a person as far as his community is concerned. But even that Raman Ilayadu was tortured, and he completely lost his eyesight. He lost his eyesight and he died as a kind of beggar on the streets. So plenty of such instances of casteist humiliations are there. But braving all these odds, Ayyankali single-handedly, with only a few friends that he was having, single-handedly he walked the public roads in the 19th century itself in Travancore, because he was so close to the capital and Venganur was his region. So he single-handedly, he procured that Villuvandi, the ceremonial bullock cart, and he actually rode on that bullock cart like a lord. He was also self-fashioned as a kind of lord. He was having a turban, a white huge turban, and also a white kind of attire, a white banyan he was having, a symbol of modernity and also cleanliness and hygiene, and also a white dhoti. He was also adorning a white dhoti, and also the randamunda, the double veshti was also here on the left shoulders, and he was also having that mustache, the mustache of Ayyankali, and the turban. So these are all what you call the symbolic kind of capitals, the visual kind of inputs that he has created for establishing this kind of a defense and assertion of public space. That is what you find in 19th century itself, the freedom of movement struggles unleashed undeniably in a brave fashion by Ayyankali through his Villuvandi struggle, through his ceremonial bullock cart rides, all along Travancore, especially in and around the capital, through the Rajavidhis, through the highways, through the public roads, he has asserted that space. So that is one freedom of movement struggle aspect of his struggle. And then the second most important thing that is very much important for our topic today, education in Kerala, that is the public school entry struggle. He was not for a separate school. He has created it. He has given numerous kind of representations and petitions to the government. He waited for so long, and he tried to create his own Kudipallikudam at Venganur in 1904. Guru has founded his institution only in 1903. In 1904, Ayyankali has instituted that Kudipallikudam, that traditional school, and he employed an ashan, Kudipallikudam Kalady ashan, and he was trying to teach the untouchable students there. But unfortunately, it was burned down. The very day it was created, it was only a small hut, a thatched hut, that was completely pulled down and burned down by the caste Hindu dogs that very day. And again the next morning, they recreated it. But there were several cases filed against Ayyankali and his men. They were popularly called the Ayyankali Pada, but Ayyankali has never claimed that there is something called Ayyankali Pada. It is actually the nomenclature that was given by the caste Hindus. The atrocious attitude of the animosity of the caste Hindus, it is expressed in that term called Ayyankali Pada. So anyway, they have recreated it. Several times it was burned down from 1904 onwards. The Kudipallikudam at Venganur was burned down, and many cases filed against the Dalits themselves by the caste Hindus. They actually caused it, and they registered the case against the victims. That was happening. So later in 1911, he got into the Legislative Assembly. He was nominated by that Diwan, a very progressive Diwan. C. Keshavan himself has given that name. P. Rajagopalachari. All the untouchables and avarnas and outcasts of Kerala, you must remember it. At least three names. That Madhava Rayar and Colonel Monroe, Madhava Rayar and B. Rajagopalachari. They were actually pro-people kind of divans. In the whole list, you will find only these three people who were a bit compassionate and accepting about the untouchables and Dalit issues. And when P. Gopalachari was there, he actually created the ground. Ashan himself was instrumental in supporting that nomination. And later Mulur was instrumental in supporting the nomination of Kurumban Devatan from the Tiruvalla Taluk. So that kind of a larger movement, a liberation movement of the Dalits and untouchables or Avarnas in general, or representation into the legislative assembly, that was also happening. So the second struggle, you can say, is the freedom of entry into the education system, public education struggle, and also simultaneously how to enter into the legislative council, how to enter into the processes of democracy, of lawmaking, or how to talk about the issues of the people in the so-called parliamentary system or democratic legislative assembly. So that was so in 1911 he got into this public legislative council, and there was actually he procured an order from the Travancore regime that the Pulaya kids or the Dalit kids, they can also go to the public school. In 1907 that official order was released, but it was actually suppressed by the caste Hindu Savarna bureaucrats till 1910. So only in 1911, when he got into the assembly, he has actually revived that issue. And even after he becoming Ayyankali, becoming a kind of MLC, he was a member of the Legislative Council. Even after that, this struggle was not completely done. The kind of what you call the practice of registering the Dalit kids, it was not actually done by plenty of repeated processions to the public schools, repeated kind of appeals and petitions to the government and various bodies. The department, it was headed by the Britishers then. Even the Britishers couldn't do anything during that time. So in 1915, that is called the Tonnuram Aandu Lahala, or the Kandala Lahala, or the 1915 Uyuttambalam public school entry struggle. He has, after a lot of waiting, he has been waiting from 1904 onwards. And only after 10 or 15 years he entered. After only 10 years he tried to enter that public school. He waited more than 10 years, or almost more than a decade. And in 1915, in Tonnuram Aandu, according to the Kolavarsham, Tonnuram Aandu, in 1915 he entered that public school. He was an MLC then, and taking a few Dalit kids, Panchami, to name a few, Panchami, Pulaya girl, 7-8 years girl, and she was taken to the school at Uyuttambalam, the public school, the government school, which is running on the tax of all these people, untouchables and the Avarnas. They are paying the tax. The Mlechas or the people of the fraternal religions, they are also paying the tax, but it is the Manusmriti that prevails. So anyway, he entered that school and he forcefully made that a headmaster to enlist these girls. 4 or 5 Dalit girls were there, including Panchami. And he forced that Panchami to sit on a particular bench. If you go to Uyuttambalam, you can still see that bench, the burned down bench, the burned or the charred building and the bench. Even today it is being preserved as a memorial, which is a world monument and a world heritage monument, and a memorial of the freedom of movement and also the public school entry, public education struggles of Ayyankali. And now it is named after Ayyankali and Panchami. That government school, LP school at Uyuttambalam is named after Ayyankali and Panchami now. The Vijayati Hall is also renamed as Ayyankali Hall now. And also the dream of Ayyankali for education. That is the most visionary and far-fetched kind of prescient dream that he had. When even Gandhi came to Bengaluru to meet Ayyankali. Gandhi went to, from 1925 onwards, he went to Varkala to meet the Guru. Likewise in 1937, it was also a strategy by the Travancore regime. In 1936, we know that the temple entry proclamation was done. Sir CP's kind of cunningness and his plots are there behind that strategy to Hinduize and co-opt the untouchables as Hindus, so that the caste Hindus don't become a minority, as in the case of the 1932, what you call the Pune Pact, which Gandhi forced Ambedkar to sign on. So likewise, in 1937, Gandhi came to Venganur and he met Mahatma Ayyankali. And he addressed him as a Pulaya king. That is the most important thing to be studied and critically evaluated by the students of history. Gandhiji, when he came to Venganur, 1937, soon after the 1936 Temple Entry Proclamation, he addressed Mahatma Ayyankali as Pulaya king. And he said, I am not the king of anyone, because there were what you call the translators, in between translators were there. So we don't know exactly, but many people, even Sridhara Menon in his Kerala history has recorded that Gandhi met him 1937 in Venganur and he addressed him as Pulaya king. Many take it as a kind of compliment, but is it actually a compliment? Because Mahatma Ayyankali, as I told you, in 1907, in the model of Guru's SNDP, he founded something called the SJPS. He never found any Pulaya organization. He actually created something for the people. The Sadhu Jana Paripalana Sangham was instituted and title named by Mahatma Ayyankali. There were plenty of Sadhu Jana, not just the Pulaya. Pulayas were only one group. Ayyanavas were there, Kuravas were there, Parayas were there, Ulladas were there. Many other so-called subcastes, castes and subcastes of Dalits were there. It was for all the depressed people and all the what you call Dalit community as a whole. Dalit communitization or community formation, which is a very important sociological internal democracy process. That was the dream and agenda of Ayyankali, like his educational goal. Dalit community formation or consolidation of all the depressed classes. That is what he meant by the Sadhu Jana. His use of keywords are very important. Sadhu, 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 which is again a kind of chanting in Buddhism. It is from the unconscious that somehow he got the illumination and the insight. As I told you, he was an illiterate person. He was never given an opportunity to read and write or even articulate the letters of the alphabet. His friends were supporting him. In the Prajasabha also, all the speeches he was doing somehow. Somehow he was doing those speeches and giving the representations. It was written by his followers. So even an illiterate person like Mahatma Ayyankali in 1907, as early 20th century, he envisioned and titled his organization as Sadhu Jana, based on the common people, the common folk. It's equal to Bahujan. It's used by the Buddhist kind of thinkers and exponents. So Sadhu is a keyword, and also Sangham, another foundational keyword from the Buddha. Directly it is taken from the Buddha. Sangham, Sadhu and Sangham. Sangham means the democratic order, not just a society or a sect, not just a so-called spiritual or some kind of social organization, but it is a democratic order or a society itself. So Sadhu and Sangham were created and named for his organization by Ayyankali. He never talked about the Pulaya thing. He never talked about any other thing. But he was against that caste and subcaste, and he wanted to liberate all the depressed kind of castes or communities, the founding or the foundational working communities of Kerala, the agricultural kind of those who were made into agricultural slaves in Kerala. So look at Gandhi in 1937. He was from 1907 onwards, he was, that means for almost 3 decades. He was the General Secretary of that Sadhu Jana Pariparana Sangham. And in 1937, after 3 decades, Gandhi coming and addressing Mahatma Ayyankali as Pulaya king. So you know that kind of implication. It was to divide and rule. It was again to further, he was for 30 years, he has been the General Secretary of the SJPS, and that General Secretary is called a Pulaya king. That means other people are there. Many untouchables and many community people are there. They will hear, they are all from the Kura, they are not just from the Pulaya. The Paraya and the Kurava and the Ayyanavar and the Siddhanavar and all those people are there. So what will they think? So this is the kind of strategy, open racism, open casteism. This is the divide and rule that Gandhiji preached here, unfortunately. And the idea of the Savarna Jatha came from Gandhiji in Vaikam struggle. Those who have never gone for arrest, those who haven't even spent a single night in the jail, they were made into the commanders and captains of the Savarna Jatha at the end, after the 600 years 600 days long struggle. These kind of Savarna leaders were co-opted and they were given the agency. That it is they who are the paternalistic view of Gandhiji again. So the idea of the Savarna Jatha, or the idea of actually expelling all the minorities from the Vaikam struggle. There were plenty of people. There were barrister George Joseph, Sebastian was there, many Muslim friends there. Even the Akalis from Sikh land, Punjab. Akalis, the Sikh brothers, they came from Punjab and they created a canteen. And for that canteen, for 20 days or something, they have spent some 3 lakh rupees in 1924. You can imagine the kind of magnitude, the kind of magnitude and the kind of effort that they have taken. Even the Sikhs were turned away by Gandhi. And when TK went to meet him in the Tirunelveli conference, the double canteen kind of conference, or in the Kakinada conference, Gandhi was very reluctant to accept this as a major kind of motion, or take it as an agenda, or accept this as a main agenda of the Congress. It is Maulana Muhammad Ali, a Muslim congressman. He was a true statesman and he was a democratic person, and he understood the importance of annihilating caste and the freedom of movement struggle. And he also understood that it is it's a struggle of the people, the untouchables, against the caste Hindu system, to liquidate Hinduism itself, as Sahodaran has proclaimed. Liquidate Hinduism, annihilate caste, and make religion a personal matter. That was the philosophy that Guru preached. So Sahodaran has proclaimed it publicly. Liquidate Hinduism. So it is an anti-Hinduism, not just a anti-Hindutva kind of movement. It was an anti-Hinduism. Caste Hinduism must be annihilated, without which you cannot go for democracy. It's a constant threat to liberty, equality and fraternity, argues B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of the Indian Constitution. So the point is that it is Maulana Muhammad Ali, a Muslim and a Congress leader, who actually supported. He was the chairperson of that session at Kakinada in Andhra, and he actually provided the space and time for this man, T.K. Madhavan, to actually move ahead with this motion against untouchability and freedom of movement struggle in Kerala. So that is why when Madhavan came back, he actually named his own son Muhammad Ali. The original name that was given to his only son, his son has written that. And later Gandhiji came after the demise after this Vaikam struggle. TK was leading the struggles for freedom of movement at Kannangulangara in Paravur, in Ernakulam district, Thiruvarpa in Kottayam district, and Aripada in this Alappuzha region, and also in Ambalappuzha he was leading the struggle. So in Thiruvarpa he was badly beaten up. Those who actually mutilated Ramanilayada and that Ramajadi Devan, I mentioned about their sad story. The story of they being blinded. So TK was also badly beaten up, and he was already a tuberculosis kind of a patient. So that was, and he also got some kind of heart problem after the mutilation on the body. Many internal injuries he suffered, and therefore he passed away in 1930 itself. He passed away, and after his demise, when Gandhi came, perhaps during this 1937 visit, when Gandhi came, his Madhavan's widow, and the elder daughter, they were very, devotees of Gandhi, and they would wanted Gandhi. Perhaps they never liked that name, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was the name of this child in the Komalidatu family. In the Yalamutal Komalidatu family, Muhammad Ali was there. So somehow they wanted Gandhi to rename that child, and Gandhi renamed Muhammad Ali as this Babu Vijayanath. Babu Vijayanath, Dr. Babu Vijayanath, the son of T.K. Madhavan, has written that book, T.K. Madhavan and Ajay. That is my father, my dad, T.K. Madhavan. In that book, there is a chapter, Muhammad Ali, how Muhammad Ali became Babu Vijayanath. Dr. Babu Vijayanath, the son of T.K. Madhavan himself has it. It's available. Sahitya Pravartaka Saharana Sangha, fortunately, maybe taken away from the shops now. Anyway, now it is available. You can read it or you can go for the PDFs online. Anyway, that page is relevant. How Gandhiji renamed Muhammad Ali to this particular Babu Vijayanath. That story is that. So anyway, the point is that Ayyankali from 1904 onwards he was struggling. He waited more than 10 years and then he did this Kandala Lahala or this Urutapalam struggle, and that was not a kind of violent uprisal, not a kind of call for violence. He simply took those Dalit kids to the school and enlisted them and made them sit in the classroom. Then it was burned down, and again the perpetrators of violence, they filed several cases against Ayyankali and his men. He was an MLC during that time, so he was having plenty of problems. So he directly never involved in it, and plenty of his followers, they were fighting it. Even from this Pangod military camp, many persons from the Nayar brigade, they went without the knowledge of their captain to fight against the Dalits in Urutamal. So that is also revealed later. Even without the knowledge of the captain of the camp, many Nayar brigade soldiers, they went and they tried to torture and suppress the agitations of the Dalits in those people. Even Nagamaya in that series, Nagamaya State Manual series, he has written. In that Nagamaya edited version, you know that Neyatingara, Kanyakumari, Thalayolaparambu, Urutambalam, these places are mentioned as fierce battlegrounds. Most fierce anti-caste struggles happened, and during that time Ayyankali also came to Thalayolaparambu. In 1914-15 there was a struggle by the Pulaya people, which is commonly called the Pulaya Lahala, but it was an anti-caste struggle by the untouchable people against caste Hindu feudalism. Ayyankali went to all those regions, that was Vadakangur, the Thakungur and the Vadakangur annexed by Ramayan and Mahatma in the 1750s. That is how Vaikam became part of the northernmost province of Travancore. And Ayyankali, not just here in Najinad and Trivandrum area, but he traveled all the way on his Villuvandi. Several Villuvandis were there. Several Ayyankali, like what you call leaders, Dalit leaders were there. So you know about the fierce battle that happened in this what you call the Chaliya Teru, the Chaliya street in Balaramuguri. In 1893 onwards, he started the Villuvandi Yatra. 1898, he was confronting the most severe battle in all his lifetime. There were several attempts there on his very life, and somehow, because he was such a martial artist and a man having many physical kind of trainings and all, that is how he saved his own life. Plenty of attempts were there on the very life of Ayyankali at the Chaliya Teru in Balaramuguri. And then you have the second phase is called, or the third phase. The first phase for the freedom of entry into the public road, freedom of movement struggles, Villuvandi Yatra. The second phase of the struggle is the Pallikudam struggle, the creation of Kudipallikudam, and to enter into the public school. That is the Pallikudam struggle. Urutambalam Lahala, Tonuraman Lahala, Kandala Lahala, these are examples. And the third most important phase is the community reform phase. The kind of casteist against casteist humiliation practices, slavery kind of systems. The Kalimala struggle, this is called the Kalimala struggle. The Kalimala was, it was forced upon Dalit women. Pulaya women, they were forced to wear this Kalimala as a sign of what you call slavery. They had to parade this slave kind of symbol, Kalumala, and the Irimbu Wala and Irimbu kind of Mala, and so on and so forth. So all these humiliating casteist, slavish kind of practices were broken, and he forced the people, or he told the people, appealed the people to to throw away, to cut and throw away and burn down the Kallumala, the stone kind of crude ornaments showing slavery and casteism. So that happened, that is the Perinadu Lehla. It's also called the Perinadu Lehla. Again, in the 1914, 15, 16 years it happened. So even Changanasheri Parameshwaram, the leader of the Nayars, they had to come, and Changanasheri had to make a kind of public speech and a kind of apology of sort. And then it ended, and all the women, they came directly onto the stage, and they have broken their Kallumala and they burned it down. There was a huge heap of, a huge pile of Kallumala near the stage in Perinadu during that struggle. So plenty of such struggles, and the most important struggle, of course, is that is our topic, is the struggle for entry into public education, because public education is that much important. Modern Kerala, we boast about the human development indices, especially public health and the healthcare and the progress in public education, the 10% literacy, so on and so forth. And who actually paved the foundation for it? The educational message of the Guru, educate so that you are liberated, and the public education space that was created by Ayyankali. The public road, that was the public sphere, was opened up by Ayyankali, and the public education system was mostly cherished, and he literally single-handedly, with only the help of a few friends, he actually carved out that niche of public education in Kerala. And there were plenty of kind of critical and theoretical and media kind of attacks against him. The criticism that was raised against Ayyankali's struggle for entry into public education, that was mostly done by that Swadeshabhimani Ramakrishna Pulla. Ramakrishna Pulla actually became the editor of that Swadeshabhimani. Swadeshabhimani actually is the newspaper that was founded and sponsored by Vakkam Abdul Khadir Maulavi. Vakkam Abdul Khadir Maulavi, the minorities were having that institution, that press, but it was completely misused by Swadeshabhimani Ramakrishna Pulla to argue that Dalit must not be given a chance to enter into the public education. He has written plenty of editorials from 1910 onwards, 1909 to 1910. He has written many times against the entry of Dalit kids into public schools. He argued that it is like, that a notorious kind of metaphor, the metaphor of the horse and the buffalo. If you unite the Dalit kids with the Savarna kids, it is like yoking the horse with the buffalo. That was the argument of Swadeshabhimani Ramakrishna Pulla. You know about his comments on Pandit K.P. Karuppan, Kavithilagan Pandit K.P. Karuppan, who wrote Jadikumi and Bala Kalesham and Udyana Virana and propagated the anti-caste message of the Guru in the Kochi region. He also was instrumental in creating the Kochi Pule Mahasabha. K.P. Vallon and Chanjan and all those people, Dalit members, were elected, nominated by K.P. Karuppan to the Cochin Legislative Assembly. So Karuppan was called a kind of fishmonger. Karuppan was abused as Karuppan's poetry was abused as having a fishy kind of fragrance or smell. മീൻമണമുള്ള കവിതയാണ് കറുപ്പൻ എഴുതുന്നത് എന്നാണ് Swadeshabhimani Ramakrishna Pulla has written in his editorials and commentaries in the newspaper of Vakkam Maulavi, misusing the Vakkam Maulavi's newspaper. Swadeshabhimani was doing a kind of casteist kind of intimidation, a casteist kind of media work that was done by Swadeshabhimani. So he abused Pandit Karuppan as a fishy kind of poet. His poetry smells of fish, and there is Tandajandal and Meenmanam in the poetry of Karuppan, he said. And against Mulu, the lead poet, the first Avarna established poet in Kerala, Velutheri, Perunelli and others, they were exterminated by the caste Hindu kind of hegemony. We know the story of Shakuntalam translation and how he gave it to Aliyoi Tamburan, and later you find Velutheri and Tirunelli passing away somehow, and Tamburan publishing it as his own. That is what happened with military and tyranny. There was a long battle, literary battle called Kavi Ramayana Vivadam and Kavi Mahabharata Yuddham. The what you call the Chillu Varak and all. Even to use the Chill letter, the letter R, the consonant letter R or R, the sound R was actually the privileged monopoly of the caste Hindu. They never allowed the Avarnas to use that R sound towards the end of their name because it may sound like a kind of Pujaka Bahuvajan. It's a kind of sound of word reverence. So Mulur was called Panikan. Then he wrote Panikan. And there was a long literary battle in Bhasha Bhoshni and those literary magazines of that time. So anyway, the point is that this Mulur, who became through furious literary battles, he got a place in the literary public sphere of Kerala. His works were published in Bhasha Bhoshni and other leading journals, and he became established as a first poet. He was accepted only as a what you call Sarasa Kavi, a humorous kind of poet. He was not he was actually a Mahagavi and a great social reformer, the lead disciple of the Guru. He has actually historicized all these incidents. Guru's cycle rickshaw being blocked at Vaikam, everything, the will Krupas being included in the SNDP, at Vadapalli, everything is being historicized through verse. Even the reference to Satyavrata Swami, who was a lead fighter in the Vaikam struggle for the Guru, because his Guru was humiliated. That is why even Satyavrata Swami, he came from the Savarna community. He was Ayyappan Pillai. Originally he was Ayyappan Pillai from Changanasheri, an Anandashram region, and he became Satyavrata Swami. There was a statement by the Guru that look at Satyavrata. He is more casteless than the Buddha himself. That was the statement by the Guru. Buddhanu Vitramel Jadikaradirna Shuddhanayitilla Ennavanam Satyavratanaya Shishyande Selgunam Kirticha Selguru എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടൊരു verse Mulur has written. So Mulur has done that kind of unimaginable work. He was into historiography through writing poetry. He was not just into aesthetics but politics and history also. So that much important figure is Mulur. And the poetry of Sahodaran, these are all actually obliterated from the syllabus. And the caste Hindu romantic things and their nostalgia and all those things are paraded as literature today. But people will have to read, include these things, Sahodaran, the poetry of Sahodaran, the anti-caste writings of the Guru, and his disciples like Sahodaran and Mulur and Pandit Karuppan, and others have to be incorporated as well. So Mulur was called an ape, a chimpanzee, by this man called the Swadeshabhimani Ramakrishna Pulla. So it is he, Ramakrishna Pulla, who proclaimed or wrote that if you include Dalit kids into school, public schools, it will be collapsed. Nobody will come there. It is like yoking together a buffalo and a horse. The horse, of course, is the caste Hindu, and the buffalo is the Dalit, the untouchable. So you cannot combine them together. That was the argument of Swadeshabhimani, who is paraded as a progressive figure, and he was Rajav Balaji. He banished him. He stopped that press. He closed down that press, and also he banished him from Travancore. And he is paraded today as the progressive kind of journalist. Journalism awards are being instituted in the name of this Ajay Sekher Pulla, who misused the press of Vakam Maulavi. Vakam Maulavi was very close to Narayana Guru. He was a very close kind of friend and follower of the Guru. He never actually spoke against the entry of Dalits into this. It was never his opinion. Even without asking Vakam Maulavi, this Pillai has written plenty of writings against the entry of Dalits into public school. So, in the context of this, what you call this kind of a backlash, in the context of this kind of Vishwasi Laharas and Tindari Laharas, where women, educated women, history professors or lawyers or other doctors and engineers, they are claiming that they are Tindari, they are untouchables by birth because they are having menstruation, which is the foundation of biopower of a woman. And they are claiming that they are untouchables, they don't want to enter into a public space. If a worshipping place is a public space, anyone can, any young women or any Indian citizens can enter the Supreme Court. The constitutional bench of the Supreme Court has given that verdict in 2018. A unanimous verdict, a 5-5 verdict was there by, even when the Hindu National Party is ruling. It's very difficult to get such a unanimous constitutional bench verdict that all women of all ages, all Indian citizens can enter in any public space. But women, the elite women, the Malayali Kulinas in particular, and their followers, in the name of religion, in the name of faith and belief, they have completely discarded that, and the highest court was condemned by this kind of Tindari Lahala, Vishwasi Lahala, this Namajapa Khoshayatra. The first version happened in 2018. And in that turbulent context, even the Chief Minister of Kerala, Comrade Pinarayi Vijayan, was abused with the casteist love by the caste Hindu women, the Malayali Kulina women, Manipulli. She abused him with her Manipravala. You know that there is a film is going to be released very soon on that, Chowak Kudimon and that Panna Pelayan and the Kaka and all. A film is going to be released on that. So this is the second version. The Shudra Lahala 2.0 is again brewing in the air now. So in this kind of a context, it is very important to remember and discuss and reevaluate and correct our mistakes. Otherwise, Kerala can become another Manipur. If this kind of insanity, lunatic kind of blind faith and belief kind of jingoism is unleashed, is unchecked, then Kerala can also degrade into, because we have seen in recent time, at least from the last couple of decades, we have seen these barbaric kind of regressions and reactionary kind of, extremely reactionary counter-revolutions Kerala witnessing. So the memory of Ayyankali and his struggle for human rights, the struggle for freedom of movement and other civil rights, and his struggle for entry into public education system is very, very important. And we must also remember this this encounter between Gandhi and Ayyankali that happened in 1937 at Venganur, and also the kind of criticism that was raised against his public school entry or public education, his defense of public education, because Ayyankali defended this public education because he wanted to alleviate and the caste divisions. At least in the younger generation, there can be a solidarity, a camaraderie, a kind of fraternal culture may develop when they cohabit or when they enter into co-education. People of various communities and castes and religions, when they come together in a classroom, when they study history or society or politics or science, society can change, or at least there may be a mental kind of change in the minds of the kid or the new generation, or at least the posterity can be molded against the caste Hindu system. So that is why Ayyankali. So it is not for the Pulaya or for the Dalit or for the Avarna, it is for the whole society. Ayyankali was such a what you call the visionary of education. Even in the 1937 statement, he said, I am not a king. My dream is only that there may be a few graduates. I want to see a few graduates from my community, that is from the Dalit community or the oppressed, not from the Pulaya, he said. Pulaya king, he was for that communitization, greater Dalit community formation, alleviating caste and subcaste. He was against the subcaste. Even Poigai Appachan was a member when he founded that in 1907. Poigai Appachan, the author of PRDS, who founded it in a colonial court in Changanasheri in 1910. Even Poigai Appachan was a member. That Charitable Society chief, John Joseph Pambadi John Joseph, he was also associated with it. Jnana Joshua was also associated. But it is the Travancore regime and their Kaudilya cunningness, especially the divans from the Brahmanical divans from outside, especially Sir C.P. Sir C.P. has actually gave the idea of this temple entry and also gave the idea to Gandhi that he may be addressed as a Pulaya king. So even when he was addressed a Pulaya king, Ayyankali said, my dream or my vision is only this. I need to die. I want to die. I'm almost a 60-year-old person in 37. He passed away in 1941, 9 years after he passed away. In 1863 to 1941, that is his lifespan. So in 37, he was already a 60-year-old man. He was having many tenures at the Trimula Praja Sabha. He said, I'm not a king or anyone. My only dream, I want to die seeing a few university graduates from my community. That means the Dalit community. That was his dream. So he is a visionary of education. He has founded the dream of democratic, inclusive, representative education in Kerala. And therefore, universities and colleges must be named after Ayyankali. His Praja Sabha speech, his legislative assembly speeches must be there in the textbooks. And it must be there in the academia and media. And he must be aptly identified as the visionary of modern Kerala education system, the public education system in particular. So with these humble kind of postulations, initial kind of inputs, let me conclude here. And I'm eager to listen to your voices and opinions and arguments or questions. I thank Professor Shaji and others for this opportunity.
Okay, this is the time for discussion. You can raise questions.